Welcome to Direct Approach, a bi-weekly podcast hosted by Wayne Moorhead, delivering timely insights, fresh perspectives, and actionable takeaways from your direct selling executive peers to fuel your business's growth and evolution. How do legacy companies stay relevant in a world that's moving fast? In this episode of Direct Approach, host Wayne Moorhead sits down with Andrew Schmidt, Regional President, West Markets at Amway, for a wide-ranging conversation about balancing legacy with leadership. You'll hear insights on segmentation, generational shifts, incentive strategies, and why Amway believes clarity is a growth strategy. But before we begin, we'd like to thank this episode's sponsor, OrderGroove. OrderGroove powers smarter subscriptions for serious direct selling brands. As the leading subscription platform for the world's fastest growing direct selling companies, OrderGroove turns basic auto ship into a high-performing growth engine, driving recurring revenue, improving distributor retention, and maximizing customer lifetime value. OrderGroove's flexible API seamlessly integrates with any e-commerce, commission, marketing, or homegrown system. Ready to future-proof your revenue model? Discover how OrderGroove can help you boost retention, drive revenue, and empower your distributors. Visit ordergroove.com to learn more. Now let's welcome your host, Wayne Moorhead, and his guest, Andrew Schmidt.
Hello and welcome to another episode of DSN's Direct Approach podcast. As always, I'm your host, Wayne Moorhead, and today's guest is an inspiring direct selling leader and one of its great champions. He serves as vice chair for both the Direct Selling Association and the Direct Selling Education Foundation. And this summer, he is soon to be the chair of the DSA. Currently, he leads markets across the Americas, Europe, South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand, while still maintaining day-to-day responsibilities for the North America market. I'm excited to welcome Andrew Schmidt, Regional President of the West Markets and Managing Director of Amway North America. Andrew, thank you so much for being here today.
Wayne, thank you so much. I feel like my title was longer than it needed to be, but I appreciate being here with you. Appreciate what you do on this podcast to elevate and uplift so many people across this important channel. And it's just an honor to get to sit here and talk with you today.
Thank you. Well, it's an honor to have you here. And I think your title was accurate. It was just the right length. There's a lot of markets that you're responsible for. And so really looking forward to you continuing helping us and championing direct selling as a channel at the DSA, especially this summer. So congratulations on the new role.
Yeah, thank you. I look forward to that opportunity. It's an important organization that represents the interests of our not just our companies, obviously, but all of the people that engage in our businesses. And obviously, we'll be focused here in the U.S. with the DSA, but I realize it's part of a broader ecosystem around the world that is advocating for the opportunity that so many here in the U.S. Americans pursue and around the world. So I think we'll probably talk about that more throughout the discussion today.
Yeah, absolutely. And Amway has certainly been a champion of free enterprise and entrepreneurship for more than 66 years now. So our thanks goes not just to you, but to everyone there at Amway for being the incredible leader that it has been for all of us and really helping to blaze a path for the rest of us.
No, thank you, Wayne.
So I've really been looking forward to this conversation, Andrew, in your leadership roles at the DSA, as well as at Amway. You have such incredible perspective and incredible insights from, across the channel that are definitely shaping the landscape for all of our companies. And I know that's what we're going to get into a lot today. But before we dig too deep, you have a really interesting background, and I'd love to know a little bit more about the path that led you from management and strategy consulting into the direct selling channel.
Sure, happy to share it. Certainly, it was not a path that was charted intentionally, at a young age. It was just what happened and unfolded throughout my career. I've been very fortunate at many points in my career to have opportunities, and maybe I have a unique genetic makeup that makes me just kind of raise my hand whenever given an opportunity, and it's kind of led me to where I am today. But the quick version of the story is, yes, I started my career as a strategy consultant for a small company. I was based out of the New York office. And in 2011, I went on an exchange with the New York office to the Tokyo office of that same company. So I moved to Tokyo, Japan. And in Japan, I did a consulting project for Amway Japan. And when I did that project, when I started that work, I was pretty much completely ignorant of the channel of Amway. I was a more junior team member and was basically just assigned to the project. And the first thing I had to do was look up, okay, who is this company? I admit that openly. I was quite unaware of the business model of the industry. And that first project started a journey in which I really became increasingly interested in the business model, the industry, and then eventually really fell in love with the industry and the company. I wound up doing several projects for Amway Japan, and then I moved back to the United States and did some more work for Amway in the United States, and then Amway recruited me, and my wife and I moved to Michigan in 2013, and here we still are, going on over 11 years. And it's just been a continuing journey of understanding more and more and more about this business and about the people that engage in the business. And I couldn't be prouder to be a part of it.
That's great. I always love hearing people's origin stories. We all find our way into direct selling in really unique ways. And then I think once we find it and understand the heart that's at the spirit of the entire channel, I think we're all hooked. We find our home there for sure.
Yeah,
even if we start outside.
Could not agree more. I guess I can't help but reflect as you share that. I think every company does this in different ways. We like to celebrate our distributors. We call them IBOs, independent business owners here in North America. We often celebrate them by welcoming them into our world headquarters here in Ada, Michigan, called a greeting line, just a celebration, applause, cheers, welcoming them into the main part of the building. I will never forget the first greeting line I attended as an employee and just the emotions that I felt, seeing this parade of people walk into the building. That's something that stuck with me. I've been to just dozens and dozens since then, but that first one is one that will always stick with me.
Absolutely. When people come in from outside the channel and more traditional channels, it is that personal aspect, the emotion that's there, and realizing that it really is people first. That really has an impact on all of us. I had a similar experience. So thank you for sharing that. So digging into some of the meat of our conversation today, this is definitely a time of change. We're all feeling that very acutely, and there's incredible opportunities that come with that change, some challenges as well. Some of the dynamics that are shifting are stretch across from how we buy products to how we look at income opportunities to how we want to interact and engage with companies. I'm curious, as you look across these dynamics that are unfolding now, what are some of the most impactful changes or dynamics that you're seeing?
Yeah, this is a meaty topic, Wayne, that we could probably spend a lot of time on. I'll do my best to provide my thoughts in a collected and coherent manner. Certainly, the landscape in our industry is changing rapidly, and that's because of forces outside of our industry that impact the companies and the people in our industry. And for different companies, depending on what we sell, products, services, lots of forces that are impacting those types of products and services. Obviously, at Amway, we're a product company, and our products are broadly in the health and well-being space. And so certainly there's a lot of trends that have impacted, not just what consumer demands look like, but also, to your point, how people search for products, how people buy products, the expectations they have with the products and brands that they use. So yes, it's been a remarkable period of change, and it continues. I mean, the pace of change here in 2025, I think any of us in business, no matter where we are, we just have to get continually comfortable with an increasing pace of change. So whether we're talking about, the changes that have underpinned, the digital transformation that probably every company has had to go through in terms of, making sure that our digital products are relevant for a user in 2025, to the changes that the pandemic brought on around how people think about their health and well-being, which is very relevant for us at Amway, and has opened up both opportunities and challenges for us in terms of meeting consumer needs and consumer expectations in the marketplace, in terms of how we innovate with our product portfolio, or how we, bring new products and solutions to market. And then, obviously within our channel, there's all of our sellers, all of our distributors, all of our consultants. And the marketplace for the direct selling opportunity is one that I think has been certainly changing my entire time I've been working in the channel, but I also think continues to be accelerating in terms of the pace of change. There's so many opportunities out there, direct selling, but beyond direct selling, for people to potentially earn a little bit of extra income or supplement their work through, freelance relationships or gig relationships, or potentially, look to have multiple, irons in the fire, so to speak, economically to support themselves, to their family. This is a growing trend, and one that creates both an opportunity and a challenge for us in the direct selling industry. Opportunity because that's one of the things that we offer, but a challenge because, I like to say the supply has never been higher for different flexible alternative pathways for people to earn income, or to, pursue some type of ability to take their talents and skills and, monetize them. And so we have to be nimble, we have to innovate, we have to change. And I think we're all wrestling with that to varying degrees.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. What came to mind as you were talking about kind of the opportunity versus the challenge. The challenge really comes around and can impact us by not changing. But those dynamics, those forces that are impacting us in a lot of ways play to our strengths, to your point, and align with what we have been, the leaders in, personal social selling for more than 100 years. So it is also, again, I know it can feel frustrating at times internal for all of us at our companies. But if we look at those opportunities and those trends and how they're aligning with who we are and the value that we deliver, this can be an incredibly exciting time. I know as part of this change, Amway has been very deliberate and very bold in how it approaches these changes, these dynamics, these trends, and specifically around what to change and what not to change. And I really enjoyed hearing some of this at DSU, and I'd love to share that with the audience of how did you come to decide what's fixed and what's flexible in this time of change?
Certainly, as you acknowledged earlier, we're not a new company, not a young company, going on 66 plus years here. And certainly that brings, benefits and challenges. And one of the benefits is that we have a bit of a history and the support of our owners and being pretty clear on some core aspects of our business that are, in our opinion, evergreen. And I'm fortunate to work at a company and with ownership that's very clear on some of the principles that we hold as foundational to why we exist. And at the core of it is our commitment to the people in our business, our distributors, our IBOs, but also our employees, and how we operate together. We have what we call values and our founders' fundamentals. These are principles or concepts that we hold as firm and evergreen, and they guide the decisions that we make. So those principles are the grounding for us to be able to make decisions then of what we're going to change and what we're not going to change. And we reflect back on our history to say we're here 66 years later, because we balanced things that we were not going to change, meaning things that hold true over time and become reliable and dependable for our IBOs and our customers. But then we also changed constantly throughout 66 years to remain relevant for our IBOs and our customers. It's always been both. And I don't think that's any different here today in 2025. We have to do both. And to have a clear strategy as a business in any moment, to me, a strategy is all about making choices and being clear on those choices. And so that's why I shared what I did at DSU around how, we as a company have tried to be very clear on the choices we're making of what we're not going to change, so that our whole ecosystem, our employees, our consultants, IBOs, and our customers, they know what they can expect. At the same time, we're going to be really clear on the things that have to change, because we have to meet the needs of the marketplace today. We have to acknowledge that the needs of our IBOs are changing, the needs of our customers are changing. Even from an employee standpoint, the work environment that we work in is changing. And so we have to make clear choices. We have to stay true to who we are, but we have to realize that we have to exist and thrive in the ecosystem of 2025. And so, I think it's going to be different for every company. I wouldn't pretend that, what we choose at Amway is right for any other company in the industry. But I think one thing that's true for all of us in the industry is that we exist because there are enough people that want to join, our network as team members, whatever we call them, our sales force, our distributors, our consultants. And those people then want to stay engaged with our products, our brands, our community. And I think because all of those people are making an individual choice for themselves, you know, any of us could do that if we chose to, right? All the people that make that choice, I think in a way we owe it to them clarity around what they can expect to remain consistent and reliable with what they need to expect will evolve. And so that to me is the other part of it that's important in our industry, in our business model, is that all these independent people that are a part of our sales networks, like we kind of owe it to them to be clear. And so, and this is, I think, another topic we talked about at DSU, so that the expectations we set for them can be met over time. And I think that's, maybe coming back to your question, connects to why we feel it's important to be clear on what's going to change and what's not going to change, and what helps us make those choices so that we can honor the relationship that we have with our sales force, with our IBOs, not just today, but a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
Yeah, that's really powerful. There's a couple things I want to circle back to in a moment, but I also love looking behind the scenes a little bit as to how this process unfolded. Was this part of kind of a more formal strategic process where the company sat down, identified those dynamics and kind of made those decisions of what is core, where are we going to be flexible, knowing and admitting that the company has been evolving forever, just like all of our companies? Or did it happen a little bit more organically within the company as a result of these changes?
Certainly we have a standard strategy and planning process that we follow with a certain cadence. But I also think it's fair to say that the past few years that there's been enough external shocks that it's caused us to have to be responsive and reactive. Certainly the onset of the pandemic, which it's hard to believe now is over 5 years ago, but I mean, that was a massive external shock, which caused us to have to rethink, certain things. And then there were ripple effects for several years, that have continued to cause us to rethink how we operate on multiple dimensions. And it's worth acknowledging that the market environment in the United States and North America, where we are here having this conversation, it's a tough market. There's been challenges the past several years that we've had to navigate. There's been things that have obviously happened to other companies in our industry that has, definitely caused us to take stock of the situation and reflect. And all of those factors, certainly, when they happen, it kind of causes you to step back and say, oh man, maybe we should think about this. Maybe we should have a discussion. Maybe we should pressure test this. But then the last thing I want to add, and I'm sure, again, every company in our industry has this to some degree, there's the feedback loop from our field, from our IBOs. That's a huge dimension for us, is, what we hear from them driving us to evaluate or rethink or reconsider. And certainly, they're out there, every day, boots on the ground. I like to say I live at like 30,000 feet. They live at, depending on their height, somewhere between 5 and 7 feet, right? They live on the ground, eye to eye with the people that they're engaging with, and that's probably, to really answer your question, the thing that causes the fastest movement of us clarifying these questions is when that signal from the field is kind of like the volume is high. That really, I think, helps us drive clarity. And again, sometimes that the question may come, hey, we need to do this differently. And we may have to come back and say, no, like, we're not going to do that differently because we're Amway and this is how we do it. And that's not, in our opinion, it's not being bullheaded. That's just being true to our principles of who we are. And then there's probably more instances where we hit the feedback loop and we realize, yes, we have to adjust, we have to change because we have to meet what the market needs.
Yeah, that feedback and connection to the leaders, those that are closest to the fire, is even more vital than it's ever been. And I think we need to make sure that there's both the formal and informal feedback coming in, that we're not waiting for some monthly or quarterly, advisory board meeting to just go through, a scripted list of questions, but really understanding what their experience and how they're evolving their business and what they're seeing. And I know that clarity and the communication that you've had has really increased the trust there with your IBOs, where especially in this time of change, where we are seeing interesting moves by other companies, communicating to them the commitment to the channel and the business model, I think for all of us is more important than ever. With this shift, there's a lot more, it seems like, younger IBOs, younger consultants that are interested, that are used to seeing people share products every day online, that are looking for those additional income opportunities, which is really exciting for us. I'm curious, with all of those options, you talked about, all the myriad of options that are out there now for additional income opportunities. How do you feel we can best position direct selling as a whole to be a viable option, a preferred option in that consideration set?
Yeah, this is such a fantastic topic and an exciting topic, I think, for our industry. And I'm going to step back for a second, with the benefit of my multi-regional work at Amway and kind of a global perspective. Is I think we're fortunate in the United States specifically that there are so many young people that are seeking entrepreneurship, flexible work arrangements, extra income, because that's not equally true in every country around the world. But in the United States, we have, both a vibrant population and demographics, and we also have, younger generations that, many data points reaffirm are interested in the types of things that we as a channel offer. And so, I think every company may choose to position it differently. I think personally the best way for us to kind of meet the need and start the conversation comes down to flexibility. Is that our businesses are inherently based on flexibility. And then a lot of things come behind that. But I think that from all the research I've seen and the anecdotal experiences I've had, that's a great starting point. Now, then there's lots of things beyond that, which every company is maybe going to have a little bit of a different angle. But I think all of us have that flexibility aspect, right? Where, we are not telling our consultants, our sales force, you must do these many hours, you must, work at this time of day, you must, read these scripts this many times to this many people. That's not our model, right? And so I think that flexibility is a great anchor point for then all of the other benefits that can come with a direct selling business. Now, last comment I'll make on this, I can't help but acknowledge that, the way we best position ourselves to kind of the young, aspiring business owner, entrepreneur, when I say we, I'm speaking on behalf of Amway here, it's with and through our field. We're not the one, we, the company, are not the one having that conversation, with that prospective IBO. It's our field that's having that conversation. And so, we think about how we do that in collaboration, in coordination to make sure that young person who's maybe interested in the Amway business opportunity or any direct selling opportunity, that they understand not just the person that they're talking to, what that relationship will offer, but what the company behind that person offers as well. And so, I think we all have to figure out that right balance of, our role as the company and then the role of the consultant, the seller, the leader, et cetera, in meeting the needs of that aspiring member of the sales force.
You've also talked about the need for demystifying the channel. As you told your origin story, similar to many of us, you didn't have a lot of exposure, maybe a lot of initial understanding about what the channel is all about. So I'm curious, with this idea of demystifying, what do we need to do for this next generation that's coming in? How do we tackle this where it's not just a relevant and flexible business opportunity, but it's one that they fully understand and seek after as well?
If I could point to one thing, Wayne, I would point to us just using simple and normal language more and more and more. I think for all of us who work in this industry or at these companies, the longer we spend time in the industry at our company, we just get so used to our own language, our terms, our nomenclature, our abbreviations, our acronyms. I joke when I work with people around the world and I have to work through a translator, that the translator needs to speak three languages: English, whatever language they're translating into, and Amway,
Yeah.
because we have our own language. And, so to come back to your question, I think the best way to demystify this business for the person who is ignorant of the business or ignorant of the industry is to be able to talk to them in language that doesn't require any understanding, of how our sales plan works or the structure to qualify for a certain level. The more we can just get to language that everyone understands, I think the better we can help people understand why what the direct selling channel offers meets the needs of what a lot of people in today's economy in the United States are looking for: flexibility, supplemental income, the ability to choose the way and the amount in which one works, the ability to represent products and services that you care about and want to align with and mean something to you, the ability to work in a community of people where you can learn from and benefit others and form relationships, as part of your engagement in this business, and then grow from those relationships, and learn skills and habits from others. I didn't need to say PV, upline, downline, this bonus, that bonus, this level, that level, to say some of those words, or at least I think I didn't.
No.
So I think that would be, where I would focus.
Yeah, I love that. It's simple, but yet really powerful. I know that we have a tendency to be insular in the channel and within our respective companies. I know I have for sure. And even just the nomenclature, the lexicon, making it and positioning it and putting it within context and a framework that we all understand, especially now with affiliates and influencers and customer referral programs. It's become so common now that showing and comparing that this is similar, that it's not too far out there, I think can be a really powerful approach. One of the things you mentioned a couple minutes ago that I love as a topic, and I think maybe doesn't get as much attention as it needs to, but you talked about setting and meeting expectations. And I think that's even more vital in today's world, in today's economy. What do we need to be doing in the way of quality control standards around setting and meeting expectations, so that whether someone comes and creates a lifelong business with us or is only with us for a season, that we leave them happy, satisfied, and advocate for the channel?
I reflect back on, any experiences that we've seen at Amway where someone perhaps had a negative experience with Amway. More often than not, the vast, vast, vast majority of the times, if we peel back the onion on what happened, it comes down to an expectation not being met. And then sometimes they're very basic, right? Like, we deliver a product and the product has some defect. Well, that's the expectation was not met, right? And if we think of it through that lens, I think we do this well as a product company. If the product expectation is not met, we're going to make it right. We're going to hold ourselves to standards, and we're going to have a pathway to rectify an issue that falls below the standards. In our channel, in our business, we have to think about that as well on the side of our sales force. And I do think this is one of the big challenges in our industry, is that the vast majority of expectations are set by the field. And And that's the beauty of the organic nature of our business. And so how do we as companies work with the field to find the right balance of control and influence, but still flexibility and independence to enable accurate and reasonable expectations to be set such that people then can be in the business in a way that they can then have the accountability or responsibility to determine whether they're willing to put in the work or have the abilities or have the time to achieve what they want to achieve. And so I think there's multiple elements that play a role. Certainly every company needs to have standards, right? We need to have standards. And then we need to have a mechanism of helping our field understand those standards. Just having standards published in a document is not good enough, right? Like the field has to understand the standards. But then, of course, we have to have the pathway to, rectify situations where the standards are not met. And I think we have to be reasonable, right? It's going to be crazy for us to think that every single one of our, IBOs understands every single nuance of the standard and applies it accurately in every single instance they have. But we have to have a pathway to educate and train and correct, so that hopefully over time we're just kind of building better understanding and better, living of the standards that we want to exist. And I think that, we as leaders in the channel, we need to keep this top of mind. We need to be kind of vocal and lead by example to say, yes, we have to hold ourselves to high standards. That in that sense, consumer protection is a good thing, right? Like I don't think any upstanding direct selling company, would say, I want people to come in with wildly unattainable expectations and for most of them to leave, unhappy. It's a horrible business model. We want people to come in excited about what we offer with a very reasonable chance to achieve what we offer that ultimately then comes down to them. It's an independent business. And, that doesn't mean that it's going to happen for everyone. You may not have the ability to put in the time that is necessary for whatever reason in your life, or your skills may just not match, selling our products. But we want expectations to be attainable and reasonable. And then we want to help as many meet them as possible. And I love how you said it, whether it's for life or for a season. We want people to walk away feeling that, what they put in was worth it, and what they got out, was based on what they put in. I think this is the big challenge for our industry, and one that I think every company has to tackle individually, but I think we have to lock arms and work on together. And, certainly, from a DSA standpoint, I think this is something we need to make sure we work as an industry to keep top of mind, is that we all have to hold ourselves to high standards, and no company is immune from, the reputation of the industry as a whole. And if there are companies in our industry who don't believe that standards need to be upheld, we're all going to be potentially tainted by such beliefs or actions. And so I do think we have to work together in service of helping, all of our companies be seen as upstanding, appropriate actors in our industry.
Are you ready to revolutionize the way your direct selling company accesses industry insights? Introducing the DSN Library's Smart Search, an AI-powered tool that puts over 2,000 curated assets at your fingertips. From compensation trends to emerging markets, answers are just a click away. If you're already a DSN supporter, then you have access to Smart Search right now. If not, it's time to check out our updated program for 2025. Starting at just $1,000 per month, your entire company can get access to the channel's most comprehensive collection of education and insights available. Visit directsellingnews.com/supporter to see a demo of Smart Search in action and to learn how your company can become a supporter now. We also invite you to join us for the Fall DSU happening October 7th through 8th in Plano, Texas. Visit dsnevents.com today for details.
So in the 66 years that Amway has been in business, you've had lifelong customers, lifelong IBOs that are, accustomed to change, but used to certain things being done in certain ways. And you talked about the importance of communication and clarity with those existing segments and those existing audiences. I'm curious how you balance remaining relevant to the existing group while also maybe evolving to become relevant and appeal to this new generation as well.
I think that every company likely has to choose where they're going to prioritize, different stakeholders and different topics. And sometimes you have to make tough calls, tough decisions, and deliver that news with empathy and honesty. And that can happen when we are maybe tweaking some element of our discretionary incentives, or it can come with maybe we're removing some type of functionality from one of our digital products that we feel like is no longer appropriate or necessary, or we're changing something in the product portfolio, be that may frustrate one segment but delight another segment. And there's all kinds of art and science to this. Art and science, this is maybe where I land in trying to answer your question best. And I do think it's fair to say that in our industry, sometimes art wins out over science. I'll actually share an example, which is, I think a specific one, but, is non-strategic enough that I feel comfortable sharing this example. For a long time, we sold a concentrated mouthwash product that you had to dilute to take. So it was a small vial, and the way you designed to use it was to pour a little bit into water and then take. And several years ago, we were doing like our consumer landscape assessment, and we basically saw that like concentrated mouthwash was just like an incredibly small share of the marketplace. Ready to drink mouthwash is what everyone uses. And so from a customer needs standpoint, like we're crazy playing over here in concentrated mouthwash. And so we got rid of that product. We launched a normal, quote unquote, ready to drink mouthwash. And it did okay. Like consumer testing was really good. Sales were okay. But our field, our leaders, just kept on telling us like, man, like you got to bring back the concentrated mouthwash. Like I just can't sell this ready to drink mouthwash. Like I used to be able to sell the concentrated mouthwash. And sure enough, about a year ago, we made the decision to switch back, and we're very soon relaunching the concentrate. I can't remember if we've launched it or if it's coming up soon, but we're going back to what we had. And in this case, I think the science would have told us like the consumer need is pointed in one direction. Like we should go in that direction. But on this one, we kind of leaned back to the art side and said, yeah, but for our people and our channel, our leaders, our sales force, what works better for them is this. And on this one, we admitted we were wrong. It's a relatively small example, but it's one where, we did take the feedback, and we did change path, and we moved back in this direction. There are plenty of others that go in the opposite direction. I just share that as one example.
Yeah, that's a great example. And I love how you speak about the balance of the art and the science, and making sure that both at times are given equal weight when making a decision. But then there's times where one is going to ultimately end up outweighing the other. And that gets back to the communication, that feedback loop, and the relationships that we need to have with those that are on the ground, that are closest to the fire. Thank you for sharing that example. One of the really powerful examples, I think, from Amway during this time of change is the commitment that the company's made to the core compensation plan. While other companies are, adjusting things or maybe tailoring them more to an influencer or an affiliate, there are those core elements that Amway is unwilling to change, that is defined as core. I'm curious, as you look at that, are there any other adjustments with incentives, with recognition, with some of these other efforts to make it more appealing to these new incoming segments?
This is a topic that all of us, no matter where we work in this channel, we're probably passionate about, right? Incentives, whatever we call it. At Amway, we call it reward and recognition, under the incentives banner. And no matter where you work in this industry, of course, this is, like the central nervous system of our business, right? It's necessary to function. It's such a huge lever that any of us as corporate or company executives, huge lever that we have to pull to try to drive the business in a certain direction. And as you acknowledge, there's a lot of change happening in the marketplace today. And for us at Amway, again, this kind of goes back to some of the things we earlier talked about in this meeting. We have the good fortune of having owners who are very, very clear on aspects of our business model that are not going to change. And one of those is our core compensation plan, which doesn't reflect every single incentive in our business, but is a substantial share of our incentives. And so that what we call the sales and marketing plan, the core sales and marketing plan, is one of those areas that we have reaffirmed time and time and time again to our IBOs. This is not going to change. Now, on top of that, absolutely, we have other incentive programs and other recognition programs that do and must evolve to meet the needs of today's IBOs in North America and have continued to evolve over time. And some of that is business cycle. If the business is growing at a fast clip, versus flat versus declining, perhaps you have to adjust some of those incentives to try to, best meet the needs of the field. But it also gets at your question, which is, what are aspiring business owners or entrepreneurs looking for in the marketplace today? And over the course of the past several years, we have made adjustments with a particular focus on what we call the new IBO, the newer business owner, to provide income early in their journey as an IBO, to make that experience as profitable and positive as possible. And that sits on top of our core sales and marketing plan, but is pointed at the selling and team building behaviors that we want to focus on and reward at those key steps in the journey. So, yeah, this is an area where kind of our broader discussion of clear on what we're not going to change, but also clear on what we're going to change holds true on obviously another element within kind of the broader picture of the business. And it's so critical. I mean, I can't say I have many discussions with our IBO leaders that don't at some point touch on incentives. And I'm sure every other direct selling executive would probably say the exact same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It is so vital right now. But again, coming back to the clarity and the communication and the trust that you've established, doing it in the right way and communicating the fixed versus flexible is more important for us, I think, than ever. Earlier, you talked about the differences in how people approach the business model geographically throughout the world. There's some really fascinating stats as it relates to Amway and this kind of incoming and newer generation, with maybe half. I think it's about half of all new incoming IBOs are 35 or below. That now you have as many non-native English speakers as you have English speakers, which is amazing. So I'm curious how some of these dynamics impact the overall business strategy and approach. Does it come down to segmentation, which is something obviously we, historically in the channel haven't developed a lot of muscle memory around. But as it shifts and as direct selling and the value proposition means different things in different areas and to different people, how is Amway approaching that?
So I'll start by acknowledging, we are fortunate at Amway to operate in 100 countries and territories around the world. So we have quite a global business. I'll speak specifically to the US, which is fascinating for Amway because it's like a world in a country. We have a very diverse business in the US across the people that engage in our business. And your stats were accurate. I was actually looking at them before this call. In the most recent year, it was 53% of our new IBOs are under the age of 35 and 40% under the age of 30. So yes, the median age this past year, I want to say, was 33. And so there's a very large population of people coming into the business that are early early in their adult journey. And yes, it's very diverse. We have quite a diverse from a language preference, ethnic standpoint in the United States. And it's interesting. It's a source of strength and a source of operational challenge. It's a source of strength in the sense that the cultural dynamics that exist in these different communities are different, and the way that they then can reach customers and reach new IBOs are different. So it's beneficial for us in the sense that we can grow. We're not all fighting over kind of the same core pie of some really, narrow demographic. We appeal to a very wide demographic, and that's a source of strength. It's a source of operational complexity for sure on multiple dimensions that I'm sure you and others can relate to in terms of, product preferences and income expectations and language preferences and, digital versus analog models of operation, geographic complexity of serving, and delivering to all of these individuals across the United States. It's a challenge that we welcome, though.
Yeah.
But certainly it's a challenge. Sometimes we make decisions around a product, a physical product, a digital product, and then later on we realize, well, that didn't quite work for this, segment of our population, and then we have to adjust or make that choice of, are we willing to adjust? Can we? And it can be hard. There's certain aspects of support that we provide in English and Spanish that I don't provide in Mandarin and Korean, even though we do have decently sizable populations of Mandarin preference and Korean preference IBOs in the United States. There's some product profiles that at the end of the day, we have to design it for someone. And, and if we were designing it for the target over here versus the target over here, we may have a slightly different, flavor or fragrance. And so there's operational complexity, but at the end of the day, we think that the fact that the Amway business opportunity is still appealing to such a wide swath of Americans in 2025, is a source of substantial optimism for the future. And it's part of why I have so much optimism for our industry going forward in the United States. When I meet the people that are recently or somewhat recently entering into this business, it's such a diverse swath of Americans. And that to me just reinforces the importance of us protecting our industry from threats, from working together as an industry to uphold, high business standards, and from ensuring that our business and all of the other business in the industry are going to continue to be here to serve the next generation of aspiring IBOs or Salesforce members, because there is a need in American society today for what we do. And the communities that we impact through our businesses and through our products, like, we create massive benefit on a daily basis. And so it's just so important that we continue to do things the right way as companies and together as an industry to ensure that continues.
You've mentioned that the need is great in the landscape today, which represents an incredible opportunity. I'm curious, as you zoom out and look at all of these incredible changes and trends that are happening, what do you see as the main value proposition for us today? What should be kind of that tip of the spear as we position and create greater awareness for the entire channel?
Wayne, it's a really good question. I think it comes down to a flexible business opportunity that every independent person has the ability to put in as much or as little as they want and choose their path. And that is supported by a company that provides that backbone and ecosystem and underlying platform that then results in a low risk proposition for the consultant, for the IBO, for the Salesforce member. I mean, to me, that's the amazing beauty of our business. Is it's a low risk on-ramp to business ownership that then can become so much more for people that have the ability and the the capability to put in the time and effort to achieve. There are a lot of opportunities out there that you can trade your time for money, right? And we don't have to rehash all of them, right? But there's a lot of opportunities to trade your time for money, but you are time limited, right? You can only generate, money in the time that you're doing that activity. And then, of course, there's lots of different business ownership opportunities out there, but a lot of them require risk to pursue. And, we exist in a place where the risk of starting a business in our channel is incredibly low. And that to me is so important that we amplify that message and ensure that that is understood by those that are ignorant of our business, ignorant of our industry. Because there are a lot of people out there that are not economically fulfilled or economically well off, that need something that is flexible and adaptable and low risk. And that is something that we offer.
That's very powerful. Thank you for that. I hope we all go back and listen, not just to the whole podcast, but especially those last few moments. Andrew, you've been very generous with your time. I just want to sneak in a couple more questions here before the clock runs out. If you were giving advice to other direct selling companies, what do you feel we need to be doing more of and less of in today to remain relevant within this new economy?
What I have learned is that there is immense value in genuinely listening to what our field is telling us. It does not mean that I am going to do everything they say, but I have learned time and time again that genuinely, authentically listening to what our field is telling us is so critical. And I've often, reflected that perhaps I was listening sooner to what the field was telling us. And the maybe do less of, it would be back to something we talked about earlier, is kind of to get a little bit out of our echo chamber, right? And do less of talking about ourselves in our echo chamber, and maybe more of thinking about how do we communicate about what we do to those who are ignorant, not negative, just ignorant, don't understand, don't know, and meet them where they are. I think is something that we can continue to challenge ourselves to do better or do differently. So, and I think maybe the last comment I'll make is to continue to support ourselves as an industry. I think that's an awesome aspect of this industry, is the cooperation spirit, the sharing spirit, the learning best practice spirit. I mean, you as an amazing example, doing this podcast, on top of your day job, in the spirit of sharing and learning and uplifting. Let's celebrate each other. Let's support one another. But let's also work together to continue to help the industry move forward in a constructive path.
Thank you for that. Final question, and then we'll let you off the hook. As you look out over the next 3 to 5 years, what excites you most about the future of direct selling?
What excites me most is the vibrancy of the generally young people that are continuing to get into our business in this industry, and the fact that our business and industry is so kind of democratized and decentralized because they are going to change from within how we all operate. And that excites me. I have to equip myself every day, or remind myself every day that I'm no longer a young person. I'm a middle-aged person, and that the young people that are coming into this industry every single day are coming in with new ideas of how best to build their Amway business or insert company name X business. And that's going to change us from within in a positive way. And, they're digital natives, and they're experimenting with generative AI on a daily basis, and they have social network experiences and interactions that are going to change how we all operate as companies. And I'm excited to see how that continues to reinvent our businesses from within for decades to come.
Andrew, thank you so much for sharing your insights today. Thank you for being so generous with your time. And thank you for advocating for all of us there at the DSA. We're very excited to have you there in this new role, and look forward to continue to be pulled together and brought together around this common love for our channel. So thank you. And please tell everybody back there at HQ that we say hello and thank them as well for their leadership over the years.
Well, very kind. I will do that. Wayne, thank you for your advocacy for our channel and for all the people that we represent. And to anyone who listens to this, I appreciate what you do from whatever corner of the industry it is to support the men and women that find fulfillment and meaning in this great industry. So thank you to everyone for listening.
Thank you for tuning in. Please take a moment to subscribe and give a 5-star rating and review to help Direct Approach continue to provide more candid insights and interviews for direct selling corporate executives. We also invite you to join us for the Fall DSU happening October 7th through 8th in Plano, Texas. Visit dsnevents.com today for details. Thank you for listening and supporting DSN and the Direct Approach podcast.